Welcome to Hangout from Times Ascent. My name is Sujit John and I will moderate this discussion today. We will be discussing the issue of managing and motivating virtual teams. This must be one of the most important discussion points in HR today. Most employees in many companies are still working from home and they are likely to continue doing so for a very long time. Some companies are talking of a permanent hybrid model where most employees come into office only for a certain percentage of time in a month. TCS thinks that the that number will be about 25–30% for them by 2025. In that kind of environment, how do you keep employees motivated? How do you ensure collaboration? How do you ensure innovation? To speak about all this, we have two very distinguished HR professionals with us today. We have with us Harjeet Khanduja. Harjeet is Vice President of Human Resources at Jio. Harjeet is an international speaker, author, poet, and HR leader. He has handled HR for large multinational organizations spanning a range of industries, including automotive, manufacturing, pharma, alternate energy, IT, ITES. He has worked with business houses like Tata, Reliance, and Piramal. He has won a number of awards and recognitions. He's a certified practitioner of SAP HCM, Six Sigma, executive coaching, design thinking, and a host of other areas. Welcome, Harjeet.
Thank you.
And we have with us Amit Joshi. Amit leads global learning and development, talent organization development, commercial capability, business and HR transformation at Merrill. Merrill is a global medical technology and device company. Amit has 18 years of experience in building and driving high-performance global businesses, learning, organization development, and talent development. His expertise includes conceptualizing and developing high-end learning content and mastery in facilitating sales, behavioral, managerial, and leadership development. He has won the Director's Excellence Award for HR. Welcome, Amit. Those who are viewing this, you can send in questions in the questions section of this webinar application. Let me start by asking each of you, Harjeet, Amit, what did you find the most challenging part of everyone working remotely from an HR point of view? So forget the early weeks when you were struggling to ensure everyone was enabled to work from home. But after that, when everyone had kind of settled in, what were one or two of the biggest challenges that you faced? Harjeet, you want to start?
One of the challenges which employees are facing, these are, and I'm talking about what the people in the industry are saying. So it is not about my organization; it is about in general.
Absolutely.
So what I hear people saying is that initial challenge was infrastructure, which is still a challenge. That whether you have connectivity or not, whether you have power or not. In fact, a few days back, power was a big issue
in Bombay.
In Mumbai. Whether people have laptop, desktop or not. What came out after so many months is, suppose if power is not there, then will you deduct salary from employee or will you take that cost as business cost?
Okay.
These kind of ethical dilemmas started coming in. If the person, should the person be having infrastructure on its own? Suppose you are hiring a new employee. So will you be checking that the person has a laptop or desktop of its own? Whether the person has connectivity devices, a power backup, and who is going to pay for that? Will you pay for power backup or will you not pay for power backup? Third challenge which people have been talking about is, should we allow people to work from home or is it okay that people work from their hometown? Because now people have started asking questions. If this is a long-term phenomena, then can you take a decision whether you're going to open up early soon or is it going to take time? Because I have taken a house here in say a metro city, and I have an establishment which I am maintaining in my hometown. So should I give away that apartment which I have in that big city and I can settle down in hometown? So that is what is creating pressure. And for ER professionals, they are thinking if the guy is going to sit in the home location, which is different from the location of the work. So you will submit ESIC and uh, other statutory things for, say, professional tax based on which location, the hometown location or the work location. Now, these are the finer issues which come up and which kind of create a policy havoc. And people are coming together, discussing these issues and trying to find the solution for these issues. This is what the prima facie, I think, the challenge which so I have not talked about mental health. I have not talked
Yeah,
about.
we'll come to that later. Yeah. Okay, we'll come to that later. Amit, opening remarks.
All right. So I think Harjeet put this across very nicely in terms of the practical challenges which we as HR would face, and the last mile would never even think of all these challenges which the HR might have to see there. But apart from that, what I feel is the first thing that we had to address, like my organization or any other organization, is the factor and the question that what's next and how and what will happen. So the anxiousness there, the anxiety level there in the audience of how are things going to change, because there's a pressure at home, right? The home environment and staying in the home environment for a whole day is not an easy job. That's what we realize there. So there is a pressure at home. There's a pressure of job, the financial aspects, taking care of your loans and EMIs. The economy is closed. No one knows what really happens there. So there was a lot of anxiousness that was to be addressed, and that was one of the biggest challenges that I think many organizations face there. And the second, of course, is a connect between individuals. See, while we are in office, it's an easy connect, and your body language plays a very important role. Your look toward the other person, right, and you say just hi to that other person, kind of makes that connect altogether. But suddenly you're on an island, and you're working out on that island, and probably you're just listening to a radio coming in or a broadcast coming in there. So I think there was a lot of change management mentally that the organization, its management, and the employees on the other side had to go through. And I think that was a big challenge and a mind shift change that came in, apart from a lot of logistic challenges as well as laptops, connectivity issues, etc. So I think that's something which was very important we address: communicating with people, keeping them together, and answering what's next and how will we do it there.
Okay. Since that is a very important subject, is the whole, I mean, Harjeet also mentioned this, the whole mental thing. What are some of the things? What would your advice be, Amit? Since you mentioned it first, what is your advice? I mean, what are the things that you did to address the issue, and general advice for other HR professionals?
Right. So going back to some of the survival games that we kind of play in the corporate, ideally to train people on how do you get together and do some team building, etc., and work together in collaboration. Taking ideas from that aspect, the first and the foremost is communicating. Right? The first thing that we did is we started communicating with our people. We suddenly ramped up all our Zoom connections, all that we had together. We got in touch with the last mile. We ensured we speak to everyone. So on daily basis, there were not really town halls, but a lot of communication, halls that were happening in smaller teams as well as bigger teams, etc., to keep them together, to keep them talking that, listen, we are still one, we're still alive. We will take care of the situation. Let's understand what's happening in the outside world. So don't panic, and let's see how do we go about navigating the same. So I think change, before the change could come in, the communication came in very handy. Communication right from the topmost management, the promoting team, the HR teams, the operation teams, everybody started communicating there. And then we started working at a management level on how do we navigate through this particular change. We don't know whether it's going to stay for 6 months, 8 months, etc. Having said that, we created those strategies, first of all, that let's keep the productivity aspect a little aside. First of all, we need to see how do we keep ourselves connected and collaborated. So that is where we started getting into a lot of learning engagements and pure engagements where we could talk to people again and we could brainstorm. So a lot of ideas actually came from people on how do we keep connecting to each other, how do we work together, etc. So like a pure design thinking way, go out to your customers and ask them that how do you want things to be done at the end of the day. That helped us learn on how is it that we should take it further. Going forward, we went into phase 3 where we started strategizing and helping people understand how do you really set goals. Now, if you're at home, it does not mean that you start at 8 in the morning and you'll sit at one place. No matter anything that happens, you'll not move out of that place. So we started educating people on how do you transition into a virtual environment. It's okay to step out, right? Have a cup of coffee at home and come back again. It's good to take a break. All right, even if you have to do your chores, if you have to do your sweeping and mopping, that's perfectly okay. So we had to tell people that live your life at home the way you live it, but you have to make space for your work with your deliverables first of all. So we started training people on how do you get your deliverables in order when you're in a virtual environment. Make a list of things that, when is it that you'll have to connect to people. In an office environment, you may just go walk by and, speak to someone and you're done. But here, either you have to make a phone call, and when you make a phone call, this guy's on another call there. So slowly, how do you build those connections? How build those WhatsApp groups? We also started, unfortunately, we were in the phase of launching Zoho as an environment, Zoho One as an environment. So that helped us kind of build a strong connect with people using certain tools of Zoho there. So I think it was a phase-wise kind of a development that we went through, taking care of this entire situation. And I think we're still evolving. As far as are we great in terms of virtual working at the moment? I don't think so. But I think soon we will get to better norms and better deliverables. The good part will be, of course, that we'll have a lot of time for self as well as for the family. Plus, I think the deliverables will get much, much better. The only thing we need to be cautious and be careful about is keep building trust and keep your people together. That's where communication will play a very important role there. So I think I can keep going on, but I'll pause here for any thoughts from your end.
Yeah. So Harjeet, I mean, yeah, like you also mentioned this huge issue, mental pressure, anxieties. What is your sense? I mean, what are the best ways to tackle this? Harjeet's screen is frozen, is it? Harjeet, can you hear us? Harjeet, your screen is frozen. Amit, you can hear me, right? Yeah. I don't know whether he'll have to. I think he might be trying to log in again. Amit, you have to specifically tell your managers and all that. It took us. I mean, was there a very conscious effort to tell all managers this is what you need to do and all that?
Right. So I think building on the idea here, one of those things which I am personally a big fan of is town halls, and but there are two different kind of town halls. One is do a town hall and people are waiting for your sandwiches and the samosas at the back there, and everybody has a nice cup of tea and it's done. I think that's a typical town hall, small little engagement, but it's a burst and done. But if you talk about real town halls, and in my experience, what we've run in organizations is have a town hall, then the same town hall, after say an hour or so, whatever the time limit you have there, break that into smaller teams, right? Make the managers or go into virtual environments, make the managers talk to their employees saying that, listen, this is what we heard in the town hall and how does it cascade down to us? What does it really mean to us, right? If the big guy is talking about a vision 2020 and 2025, etc., right? The guy on the last mile who's doing some accounts work will say, what's in it for me? I think the samosa should be tasting better. It should be hot till this finished off. But that's not the case. how is it that a manager can really go down and say, hey, listen, the Vision 2020 means this is the kind of contribution you will make for this particular vision. That's where your skill needs to go up. That's where your contribution needs to go up. That's where we will contribute more towards you, and we'll build a stronger team, and we'll invest it more into you. So what changes are coming in after the big wave announcement is something which is a very powerful technique for town halls, rather than just doing a town hall which is an announcement and the music sometimes plays well and it's done. I think that's not successful. That's only a kind of an event, but there needs to be a process after the event which makes it successful. So I think those are some of those things which a lot of sales leaders in our organization did very well and kept connected to their entire audience of say 300, 200 or 100 people at one time and one go there.
And what's the response you're getting from your employees after you've done this now for quite some time now? What is the sense you're getting?
So the first thing that definitely comes in is that they don't feel left alone.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? The first thing that comes in is that they don't feel left alone. They are in touch with us, day in and day out. When I say us, that means the leaders in the hierarchy. They are in touch day in and day out. Second is we've invested a lot, and we probably must have done say 150 plus kind of sessions across, along with business, doing those sessions. If I count the business ones, I think it could even go 250 plus in its numbers. So suddenly there was a change that you guys are sitting at home. We won't make you do something extra work, but we'll let you invest in yourself. And I think almost every single day, every person during the lockdown had at least 1 to 2 sessions on an average. Either it was behavioral, sales, product, or maybe communication. So that's how we keep them. We actually kept them engaged throughout. And by then, we had the partial lockdown open, and people started going on the field as well. So that's where I think we kept the momentum on and kept moving the big wheel forward there.
Okay, Harjeet is back. Yeah, sorry, we lost you for a little while. I know. So, we're discussing the same point. I mean, ultimately, and I was asking you the same question on mental pressure and anxiety and all that. What are your suggestions on how to handle those?
Look, if business does well, then everything is good. So what happened when this entire thing started creeping on, or whenever a crisis hits? If you remember when demonetization happened, everyone was in shock, and suddenly all the vegetable vendors had Paytm. Because Paytm reacted fast at that point in time. In this crisis also, there were companies who decided that this is not a crisis, this is an opportunity. The companies which were making alcohol or liquor, they started making hand sanitizers. So it was how you saw that environment. There were people who realized that, okay, the business has changed, the market has changed. So if the market has changed, let's change the strategy. Let's change the way of working. There were few people who had planned for it earlier. There were few people who did not plan for it. They planned on the go. So that was a business decision which actually created that, okay, if business is going to survive, business can carry you. Maslow hierarchy. First thing is, people want their physiological needs to be met. That means whether you are getting salary or not. If salary is there, then there will be less of tension.
Absolutely.
Second is whether safety is there or not. A lot of organizations went ahead and increased their insurance coverage because Corona was a costly disease initially. Like anyone who gets admitted, it is like you are spending 1.5 lakh rupees for treatment just because of that isolation room costs that much and the medicines you are taking. So whether Corona is covered in your insurance plans, whether your insurance plans cover enough, that was another pressure, that somebody is actually taking care of you. Third was whether you have means to do your work or not. So you have connectivity, laptop, those kind of things. And then whether somebody is talking to you, allocating work to you on a daily basis. If somebody is allocating work, excellent. And after that, whether somebody is appreciating you for that work or not. It is the same philosophy, same fundamental, but you have to make it work in a digital world because you are not coming together as physical human beings. So if that insecurity is taken care of, then rest everything works very fine. That is what I have gathered.
Okay. So it's just a matter of whether virtually you're doing these things, all of these things that you mentioned. Okay, I mean, it's what you actually did in the physical world. You're doing that effectively on the virtual side. Okay. We were. You mentioned this whole thing of the power and infrastructure and all that.
Yeah.
In your opinion, who should take the responsibility for all this?
Look, depends upon
the company should take responsibility completely?
No, I'm saying it depends upon company to company how you want to structure it. What is important for your business? Look at contact center employees or contact center businesses. What they do is they say, we will provide you cabs which will pick you from your home and bring you to office, because that time in the night when we want you to work, there are no cabs available. There are companies which provide you allowance so that you can take taxation benefit. And there are companies which say, boss, you want to work, conveyance is your responsibility, I am paying you salary. This totally depends upon what is the need of the organization. And every organization structures itself based on what its needs are.
Okay.
So if in your business, if you think it is critical, you cannot go down for a second, then you have to make sure that power doesn't go down in the homes of your employees. In that case, will you give allowance for a power backup or will you not? And if it is like, okay, the guy is a design guy, even if power goes, connectivity is not required, then should I or shouldn't I? So every business will have to answer those questions on their own.
Okay. On this specific question, I mean, which everybody talks about, there is no start time and no end time. I know we briefly discussed it. I think both of you kind of mentioned it, but no start time, no end time. How does one resolve that issue?
This is an issue of mindset. Every day when you start, that is your start time. Okay, you are meaning when to start the work.
No, I mean, the feeling that, I'm working through the day. Companies all say that employees are feeling that pressure, but yet not, at least I know companies which are not doing anything or consciously telling people, okay, or maybe there are good examples of companies telling people, okay, start at this time, make sure you end at this time, those kind of things.
Even if you tell, although it is a good practice to tell people what time to start and what time to end, in physical environment also you used to tell, but there were people who used to come early and there were people who used to sit in the office till the time you switched off the AC. Now point is, these people are burning themselves down without them realizing that they are doing it. What is their reason of doing it? It is insecurity. That right now, are there other options available? And if company is going through a tough time, I should not be the last person. So that is how employee psychology is working. And managers are going through a different dilemma or a pressure. Look, when somebody is working remotely, you don't see that person working. So many a times you get a doubt in your mind whether that person is working or not if the person is not reporting. So you need to get your reporting structures, that okay, have cadence calls, report what you have been working on. If those disciplines are not there, manager will also have a doubt whether this guy is working or not. And then manager will have a tendency to give more and more work, and because of the insecurity, employees doing more and more work. That creates pressure. So one has to get out of this vicious cycle of introducing those kind of measures where you are saying, okay, there are cadence calls where connect is there, where the person can explain. Second is there is a structured reporting which is happening. So if you get to know, okay, this guy is working 10 hours a day, then next thing manager wants to know is, okay, what you are working on 10 hours. So there is a deliverable which is getting reported, especially if you are in a function which is not like you are in design or you are in marketing. Marketing is still measurable. So that time, whatever you are working on, you have to convey that. So you have to give those platforms and methods to convey that. And third is you have to educate your managers. Manager education is the most important thing which you can do at this point in time. If you educate managers, first, there is no point in creating excess pressure because this is going to fire back. It is a short-term gain. In long term, this is going to hurt us. So if your managers are mature, employees get comfort when managers are open, and managers don't get into this business of squeezing employees. Even if organization has an intent or doesn't have an intent, it doesn't matter. It is the last person on the ground, how that person behaves. So manager maturity is something which organizations are working on and should be working on.
Okay, manager maturity. Amit, I know you mentioned it a little bit, but specifically on this question on managing the day, what's your advice to managers and employees?
But I think one of the very prime aspects when you're working virtually is a security or a mental security, right? That even if I'm sitting idle for the moment, right, for the next 30 minutes, why? Because I'm not getting some ideas to work on a module. Nobody is going to penalize me. Nobody is going to say, hey, listen, you're sitting idle and you're probably even watching that news there. And I'm really talking very practical aspects. These things go into the house. If the managers are thinking that the employee is sitting in front of the computer like this for a continuous 8 hours, no, that's not happening unless you're making them sit that way. And Harjeet rightly put across that don't squeeze your employees there. See the output that you want to create, which are your deliverables for the year, the KRAs, KPIs for the year, they haven't changed. You just have to change the methodology towards the same. So whether it's a Dan Pink or Dr. DC theory, we talk about relatedness, autonomy, and providing skill and knowledge to that particular person. So Dan Pink has this new book where he talks about relatedness and autonomy to be given to people. Of course, Dr. DC has this theory of motivating others. So you can't motivate anyone. You can just create an environment. So in simple ways, when you talk to your people, when you set goals with them, there's another quick element that I will add, which is Simon Sinek, one of my favorites element there. Tell people the why first. Managers need to talk the why and co-create the how and the what to be done. This is a big shift that the managers, any which ways, even if you're not working in a virtual environment, you have to do. Tell people the why, then don't start doing the how. Then people will sit idle and you're actually getting just workers who are assembling. You don't need that, right? You need mature audience to do some stuff for you. So co-create the how. And the moment you put empowerment, rather than ask saying, you ask a question that, so how do you think you want to work this out? You will see a better committed person and an employee that you would have than somebody who does a briefing call at 9 in the morning, says, why did you come at 9 in the morning there? And it's a briefing call. Listen, the poor guy has a small house, right? And everybody in the house is working around. You need to be considerate about those things. So how do you have empathy? And a very powerful concept called outrospection. Can I really outrospect that person's situation and circumstance and work with him? And the moment I do that, this person will actually ease out all his anxieties because he's more focused towards work than impressing, like Harjeet said, rightly said, that it's like an overwork and trying to impress that I'm working all the time. So managers need to do this mind shift, do outrospection, empathy in place, create a motivating environment by telling the the why of things and co-creating the how and the what there. And this is where how you'll empower people. And if you do this, I think all your situational leadership, everything else in the theory automatically falls in place there. So I think this is one important aspect that the manager needs to have as an approach. First of all, of course, a lot of skill and knowledge is involved further to be trained, but have this fundamentally in place.
Okay.
I have one example on this, which I follow. So look, earlier what used to happen was that, okay, when you are leaving the office, means your boss calls and you say, I have left for home. Now you can't do that because you are at home.
Right.
But point is, I still do that. What I have done is, I have decided, okay, this is my workplace. There is a seat. If I'm sitting on that seat, I am at work. If I'm not sitting on that seat, I am not at work.
Okay.
So even now, if somebody calls me and says, oh, I'm sorry, this is a little bit late, say I have left office. So the concept is, you should be clear when you have left office.
Right.
And if something can wait for tomorrow, let it wait for tomorrow. If something is urgent, if there is a big hue and cry which is going to happen, make sure that happens. But you don't have to push yourself too hard that everything has to be done today. It has to work the way it was working before the lockdown.
Okay, that's an interesting thing for viewers to take home. Yeah, you can decide that where you're sitting is your office, and if you're not, then you're not. Yeah, managers again have a crucial role to play. So there's this question from Ashok Chopra: how to improve employee productivity by focusing on real-time performance boosters? Who wants
Very
to
simple question. But, and answer is also very simple. Generally, whenever we talk about productivity, we get very hyper about, okay, productivity has to be at that level. There are jobs which are productivity related, that you have to do 50 calls a day, or you have to review 200 documents a day. Those jobs are okay. There you can monitor productivity. But the jobs which are thinking jobs, you should not actually get into productivity. Even those productivity jobs, you should not get into productivity. My mom had diabetes. So what she used to do was, she used to do that pin-up thing, and she used to look at, okay, this is what my sugar level is. Every day she will diligently write down what her sugar level is, but she will not do anything about it. So when we talk about productivity, we measure productivity, but we don't do anything about it. What you need to do about it? You have to actually work on it. You have to walk. You have to take medicine. So thing is, are you measuring productivity, or are you actually reviewing things on a daily basis, that why it is not coming down and what action do I need to take? So if you are reviewing your people on a regular basis, then things happen. Second thing is, look, if you need productivity, first is you have to decide where you want to go. You have to set goals, and you have to set expectations with people. Sounds very simple, but the most difficult thing to do. Setting expectations, telling somebody, this is what I expect from you. And most of the times, this is good enough. The problem with this whole scenario is, after 15 days, you have to again set expectations, because in 15 days, that expectation level, the person hits some roadblock, the person is not clear, the person forgot. So you have to make sure that those things are taken care of. Another thing about productivity, But what has happened is the physical productivity, the productivity in the physical environment and in the digital environment, there is some difference. I will tell you a story. I had a friend called Prasad. He was like 70 years old. So he was very worried in the lockdown period. My pension will not come because you have to go to pension office physically and say that I am alive, then only you get your pension. So I said, what's the problem? We will call the pension office. So we called the pension office. Pension officer said, sir, you don't have to worry about it. We can do a WhatsApp call and I will verify on the WhatsApp call that you are alive and your pension will come. I thought Prasad will be happy, but Prasad was furious. He said, if you were able to do this, then why you made me come to pension office for past 8 years? That is not acceptable. Thing is, solution was there, but we wanted COVID to come to understand, okay, this solution we can implement. Productivity happens when the processes improve. Most of the companies which are making money right now, what they did was they improved their processes. And when they improved their processes, they have seen a significant jump in productivity. They have seen that jobs are getting redefined. In fact, I was looking at the list of top 100 companies who have made money. I can understand IT companies, I can understand consulting companies. Audi was there, automobile manufacturer. Then I saw a company which is selling cat food or dog food. That company is there. It is about how they structured themselves in the time of crisis. That company, what it did was it started doing a Swiggy thing and it created a mark for itself and said, we will deliver your cat food at your home. That was the only difference for it to become the top 100 companies in the world. Why we did not think of it, or why so many companies in India did not think of it, that is something we need to ponder upon, and that is what is going to bring productivity.
Absolutely, absolutely. Amit, you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. I think what really it can be summed up here is how do we create a culture in the organization, right? And with the current culture where we promote collaboration, we promote speed, we promote drive, achievement orientation, detail orientation, etc., as certain concepts there. I think what is also very important in the world going forward, and if those top 100 companies, as Harjeet said, that made a lot of money, I think a lot of agile environments came into place, right? And these are the companies who are very agile in making a shift in their strategy. If not this, let's do this and still survive. And in fact, do much better than probably they were doing earlier there. I think that agile as a concept, whether it is used for organizational purposes or whether it is used in project management, it really simply talks about that start delivering small chunks and make those small little changes. Go ahead and dissolve any kind of major dependencies, build those intact teams which can deliver. So I think agile is one concept that I can really think of, that if the organization was agile enough, the mindset of people was agile enough, I think that's where they moved faster in the entire economy there, and started doing things in a different way altogether. So I definitely promote this point that whenever you're working in a virtual environment with your people, set the goals very clear. And the goals is, the goals are like, if you have to achieve, you have to move from point A to point B, define what is point A and define what is point B, define what is that achievement. Second, two important aspects, what really needs to go up from the managers and connected back again to the managers. When I say managers, I look at the entire hierarchy, right from the topmost guy to the front end manager there. Is start coaching people, and at certain levels you might also have mentors coming in, right? Some senior people could mentor. Like if I'm a new person who's joined recently in this organization, or I'm working on certain aspects of it, etc., I need a couple of mentors because I'm not in touch with the entire organization now. And these mentors will say and help me get aligned and deliver at the end of the day. So mentoring and coaching. And coaching, for that matter, is all about asking those right questions to your employees and seeing whether they are able to do it, or you need to give certain direction, or certain knowledge pieces out there. So I think these are the two elements to sum up that coach your people, rather than so one is set the goals right and then start coaching in. What we have also seen here is that the moment we get into a setup virtually, right, there's one thing that everybody's not as comfortable as we are probably with the camera and with the entire virtual world. So one needs to be very careful. I'll just give you a couple of instances there. I run a lot of project management trainings, and I was running it for one of those teams within my organization. And I had a small little group, of 10 people, out of which 3 never switched on their cameras. They never did that. I never forced them to. Why? Because they're still not comfortable. Imagine they are into an environment in a very high professional world, but they're still not so comfortable. So you need to be mindful about these things, make people comfortable. If somebody's looking left and right, it's his habit to to do things, etc. there. Now, camera, should it be on all the time? Those little things that, I want to see whether you're paying attention or not paying attention. The thumb rule is what do you want the attention to be on? And I'm running any virtual meetings or engagements, right? For the first few minutes, I'll keep all the cameras on. I'll request so we can see each other and build that connect. But after that, what's my hero on the screen is my content. Then I can switch off and I can be comfortable. The other person can also be comfortable. Then again, if you want to interact, let the camera be on. Slow and steady, you see it is very easy for people to adapt. And it becomes very smooth transition for people to get into a virtual environment there. Don't make it so hard. Don't push people so much. Let them transition, ask those right questions, coach, mentor, and have that patience, give that time to people, and you'll see that they will change over a period of time. And I think that's what we all need to keep doing is keep coaching and mentoring and have that patience with people there.
Coaching and mentoring, yeah. Since you mentioned camera, let's talk a little bit about, we sometimes still feel a little uncomfortable, children coming into the picture or the video and all of that. What is your advice to colleagues on this, on when they switch on their video? What should they be careful about, or what should they not worry about?
So I think, one is, be yourself, right? First of all, if somebody is not comfortable with the camera, don't push the person. Second is, instruct people beforehand. And I do this by sending an email across that, listen, we'll switch on the cameras for a little while. So just make sure that there's no disturbance around, etc. And you can actually add some things that, we all want to see that, if you want to wear a blue shirt, everybody wants to wear a blue shirt, everybody gets together, wearing a blue shirt or a blue color, etc. And suddenly there is a motivation to get up the camera on. That listen, I've got something blue on me altogether. So you can use such techniques to pull people in, one. Second is that, see, camera, I need not see the camera all the time. I can be myself, I can look around and I can talk, etc. And the moment I'm done, I can still stare at something else altogether. So be yourself, be comfortable. You don't have to enact. You're not a newsreader looking at a teleprompter. You need to tell people. So newsreader, why is it that they're so precise in talking? People, many of them may not know that they have a teleprompter. They just read out of the teleprompter and there's a camera, down there. And hence you see them so focused there. But they're reading, they're not impromptu at the moment. So be impromptu, be yourself, have the basic things in place so you don't get embarrassed suddenly in between, that's something which you just need to take care all by yourself. Have something which is no movement kind of a background. Respect the other audience by ensuring that you are in a secluded place, right? Come what may, just ensure that so we can, or at least at the time that you want to talk, ensure that there is silence around. And I'm also sure that people at your home will respect that you are at work and will start doing the same as well. So camera, I think there's nothing to worry about. Just switch it on and be yourself. And it is not that bad that you look that on the camera as you might think about yourself there. So that's the message that we always tell people. Nobody even bothers. All right, everybody appreciates your smile. That's all that you need to do.
Actually, there are practical issues. There are practical issues of not switching on the camera.
Okay.
We think that like switching on camera is a good thing. Everyone understands switching on camera is a good thing. But problem is, not everyone has this large a house where you actually want to show everyone that, look, this is how my house looks like. Second is working mothers. They have kids roaming around. She is making hair of the child, and at the same time she is attending the call. You can't tell the kid that. So what she does is she is doing something else. She is multitasking, and she doesn't want to show. She has not combed her hair. She doesn't want to come. Somebody who has not shaved, and people do that. If they have not shaved, they don't want to switch on the camera because they feel
Absolutely.
embarrassed. And you need to understand and respect that. Okay, if this is the case, that is fine. Like what Amit said, create something. I have seen a case where family is well off, house is good, but there are 4 calls going on simultaneously, 2 for kids, 1 for wife, and 1 for husband. You don't want to switch on camera, or you are very cautious about the microphone also. So managers also need to understand this dynamics. If you want to engage, create competitions where you are involving kids. So kids want to come on the screen. You just want to make sure that when the call is happening, the person is engaged or not. That should be your focus. And like Amit said, first few seconds, if the camera is on, you know people are there. Or if there are 5 people on the call and they are discussing, perfectly fine. If they're discussing, what you need their brain. You don't need their physical body. They are not your what do they call? Actually, lockdown has done one good thing. You are not owning physical bodies of people. People are not slaves. You are using their talent, and when they talk, that talent comes out. They give you advice. For that you pay them. You don't pay them for their physical bodies. That is one interesting insight which has come in, which people are able to understand. So camera should not be that big a issue. People understand, okay, this is how I will look like. And maybe I'm making a overstatement, because I always thought what's there in it. But I have seen people talking about, like, they will do their camera like this, and then they will start talking, and they don't even realize that they're doing something like this. And accidentally, I've seen some people, they are sitting in a banyan and they will switch on their camera, and then they will feel embarrassed. Oh, what has happened? So now cooking
So
is
this is
happening.
what.
Yeah, go ahead, Amit.
Yeah, Amit.
Sorry, Ajit, go ahead. I thought you're done.
No, I was just saying, the other day we were discussing that if children come on playing, you should not mind. That tolerance level should be developed in the organization. In fact, I will tell you a story. So one of my friends, he told me that I called him. He said, and he happens to be one of my colleague also. So he said, my wife told me that for the first time in the whole month, we heard you laughing. So it was a normal observation. But understand that the entire family is listening when you are doing the conversation. So if you are shouting and screaming, they listen. They paint the image of the boss. They paint that this is how this person is. So now you can see this as a threat also, that you have to treat your employees well, otherwise the entire family is creating your image. And
Yes.
second is, you can engage with the entire family. When we talk about engagement, till now it was employee engagement. Now it is family engagement. If you do family engagement well, the employee will be much more engaged with you than ever. Yeah,
True.
I will
Very
stop
true.
here. Yeah, Amit.
Very true. Amit, you were saying
In fact,
something?
Ajit, Absolutely, a very similar example that I wanted to share, and I was just jumping out of my chair for that. So, we happened to do a virtual get together for one of the achievements for one of our divisions. We had 120 people on the screen on Zoom at one go, and we did this session from 9 in the night. We did the session from 7 in the evening to 9 in the night altogether. The whole day, because there was a new product launch that happened, so people were trained almost for like 8 hours for this new product that we launched there, which was a robotic, precise cutting machine for orthos there. After that, we just got into a 7 to 9 get together. So all we had was a mocktail party, not a cocktail party, but a mocktail party there. So people got their own kind of, drinks that they want to bring in, whatever they wish to, right? There's no kind of cap to that. And second is that we had a small little engagement that we did with them. And we have these breakout rooms, and breakout rooms are a wonderful thing in a virtual world if you have large teams to address to. So we broke them into smaller teams, and we said that with the new launch of the product, right? How do you see this team? Paint a picture of this particular team, and these 10 to 12 people paint a picture of what is your perception, and then we get all the pictures together. What we also encouraged is that for the painting, what you need to do is, if you have a child at home, get the child along with the crayons and the white paper, right? Get the child along. So for literally 25 to 30% of the audience, we had small little children on the screen as well, with the father or the mother drawing something out. And I think that was one of the best experience, where they could see me, I could see them, and the family was involved. And as Harjeet rightly mentioned, that this is a great opportunity, that it's not just one picnic day, but the moment you're doing any engagement, as far as all our engagements, we made sure that if we see a family member, especially a kid there, usually say, hey, we see your kid there, why don't you call him? And I stop the session in between, I say hi to the kid, everybody says hi to the kid, and it's a wonderful moment that we cherish. We have to do this because that's the kind of respect that we need to provide to somebody on the screen there, because he or she is a family member. So even if there is something like a background noise or something like this, and the person keeps looking on the other side, I say, hey, listen, if there's something that you need to attend, go and attend, don't worry. We also ensure that if somebody logs in while driving, we immediately ask the person to log off. Why? Because it's not right. It's not right to drive as well as be on the call there. So these are some of those instances, and we actually get access to the person's home and family now, take advantage to connect, say hi to their family members, and you will see the kind of bonding that they have with you and the organization as well. So I was actually jumping out of my chair to give this example, that it creates a great impression of the organization, the culture. It's not just saying that your family is important to us, but doing something which makes them feel that yes, my family is important, something was paused and an attention was paid there. So I think that's something which is very important in this virtual world for us.
Okay. Yeah, we've covered quite a bit of ground here. Great. What is your sense? Are we going into a hybrid world where this kind of arrangement is going to be fairly permanent for a lot of employees? Harjeet?
Yeah, I think look, many industries have decided to go in that direction. If you see contact center industry, they said we are not going to sit back and close our contact centers. Everyone is going to work on a mobile phone, and you are going to take calls through mobile phone. They connected them through the hardware, and now contact center agents are working from home. Do you think now they need to bring them to office so that they can work better? They're already doing what they're supposed to do sitting at their home. That entire infrastructure saves a huge margin. Whatever your manpower cost is, same amount you spend on infrastructure, if you save that, how much margin you get, and you can deliver those services at much lesser cost now. So that industry has become competitive, and that is the advantage of the digital world, which people are realizing. At the same time, there are people who are extroverts. You talk to them, they're frustrated. They don't want to work from home. Important is give people choice. when you start giving people choice, right now people are frustrated because there was no choice. They have been made to sit at home. Moment you give them choice, whether you want to work from home, your 60 to 70% of people, depending upon industry, will say, yeah, we want to work from home. And so that much of your workforce will be working from home with choice. And that will make a huge amount of that mental burden will come down, because that will be their choice. And I think this is not a short-term thing. For many industries, it is going to be a long-term thing. Manufacturing industry will struggle because of ethical dilemmas, that half the population or 80% population is working in factory. Should we do it for 20%? Will it create ER issues or not? So that's a separate issue, but they can also see cost advantages. Having a designer somewhere in a village of UP at a lower cost, a better designer, rather than having a person in Mumbai who is having difficulty in meeting the rental costs even. So you can make those bargains.
Exactly. Amit, what are you thinking, Merrill? Which way is it going?
So I think the hybrid model in most of the cases will come up in the long run. And so correcting back to a little while ago that Harjeet mentioned in his story that on the pension guy, it's very insightful to say that did you have to wait for the pandemic to come in and say that no, WhatsApp is okay? Just because it is now a kind of a need, you're making it happen. Why did you make it happen before? So we always say in NLP that if you have a shock or a trauma situation that you've gone through there, it takes years for you to do that. And but there's also another way to do it, is to kind of brush that up in a repeated fashion, from not the start to the end, but end to the start, and keep adding funny characters, and you can brush off the trauma event there. And it said, so why wait for 10 years, right? Why don't you do it right away and do the same, that you can wash out those memories altogether? So having said that, I think the hybrid model is in place. People will think more innovatively now. People will be forced to think more innovatively even when you're working at home. What matters at the end of the day are your deliverables. What I see as a brighter opportunity for the entire nation is that we will be able to get the brightest of the talents, which somewhere is, they can't reach to those metro cities, and I think we'll have access to them in a very easy way. This will bring in an even development across India. And what will that bring in? I think in the long run, if I look at the next 25 years, if we work like this, people in the rural areas, semi-rural areas, tier 2, 3, 4 cities, etc., will get a lot of opportunities. We'll also get a lot of education, right? Education, environment, and experiences. I think that will shape up a better nation at the end of the day, after say 25 years down the line. Because when the waters go everywhere in the field, the whole field looks green than just patches there. So I think it's here to stay. It will become a norm, and people one fine day will say, oh, well, there was a time that you went to office every day. Oh my God. So I think that's the future that we have. And I think a lot of changes along with that will come in as well.
Yeah. Great. We are almost out of time. So lots of messages there. Be extremely agile. Communicate. Empower your managers. Videos. Don't feel guilty about a lot of things that happen. So wonderful talking to both of you, Harjeet, Amit. Great discussion. Lots of messages, like I said. Thanks again. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Bye.
It was great interacting.
Thanks, Sujit. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.